And we're back with Bedtime Stories, Grown-Up Edition. Like Mother, Like Daughter, Part 3. When we left off, our girl Angela was getting settled in her new home. Marcus was having a come to Jesus conversation with his mother. Brielle just found out that her law firm is representing the wife of her best friend Jessica's so-called boyfriend. Brielle looks down at her text message, looks up at Lauren and says, "Did you just say Aruba?" Lauren says, "Girl, yes. And the crazy thing about the whole thing is that this woman is actually his wife's sister. The girl is nuts. I'll tell you more about it tomorrow." Brielle said, "Wait a minute. The man is having an affair with his wife's sister? That's just so terrible." Lauren says, "Girl, who you telling? If I ever found out my husband was having an affair, let alone with somebody that I was related to, you'd have to get me up off of both of them." Brielle said, "I know that's right. Well, I'll go ahead and get to the clerk's office and get this paperwork filed." Meanwhile, in Denver, Q is done making sure all of the boxes are in the appropriate rooms, and he and Angela are having a conversation. "So, Mrs. Washington," Angela says, "I told you you can call me Angie, Q." Q says, "That's right, Angie. So, LJ wants me to hang around for a little while, make sure everything is handled as far as with the security company, and make sure you have everything that you need, run point for him. You good with that?" Angela says, "Well, there is plenty of room here. I shouldn't be in your way, and you certainly shouldn't be in mine." Q says, "Well, where you want me to set up at? You want me in one of these spare rooms in here, or you want me out in the guest house?" Angela says, "That's completely up to you. Make yourself at home." Q says, "Don't threaten me with a good time." At that moment, the doorbell rings, and he says, "Until your security's set up, I'll be the one answering the door." Angela says, "Be my guest." Q goes to the door, and there's a woman. He says, "How can I help you?" She says, "Yes, I'm looking for Angela Washington." He says, "And you are?" She says, "Oh, I'm Pastor Tanya Robbins Smith." Angela's mother and father were originally from a small town in Georgia. In that small town, they attended a church that was pastored by Dennis Robbins Sr. Pastor Robbins Sr. helped Miss Cheryl get out of town when she was leaving Angela and Stephanie's father. Pastor Robbins Jr. is the pastor of one of the churches that they have in North Carolina. Pastor Robbins Jr. assisted Angela with her relocation to Denver. And Pastor Tanya Robbins Smith is the pastor of the church that they have in Denver. Q escorts Pastor Tanya into the kitchen and says to Angela, "You have a visitor. I think I'll give you ladies some privacy and do some exploring if you don't mind." Angela says, "Go ahead. Like I said, make yourself at home." Pastor Tanya watches Q leave the room, looks at Angela, and says, "Who is that?" Angela and Pastor Tanya go way back. So Angela looks at Pastor Tanya and says, "Don't do that. It's not even all that, girl." Pastor Tanya says, "Okay now. I expect a full explanation while I help you unpack all these boxes. How did you end up with all these boxes when all you were supposed to be bringing was your personal items?" Angela said, "I brought every single thing that belonged to me individually. I have no plans on going back." As they began to unpack, Angela unpacked the entire story. Everything that happened from beginning to end, everything that she learned, and her plans for the future. She explained that Q was an employee at LJ's PI firm and that he was there to ensure her safety, to ensure that everything got set up and report back to LJ, and to continue the investigation. They started their unpacking downstairs and they finished it in Angela's master bedroom. They looked out of the master bedroom windows and they saw Q coming around the running trails, shirt off, chocolate chest glistening in the sun, sweat pouring. They looked at each other And Pastor Tanya says, sis, that's going to be a problem. Meanwhile, back in North Carolina, Brielle is sitting at the bar waiting for her best friend. They've agreed to meet for drinks so that Jessica can tell her all about her trip to Aruba. Brielle's stomach is in knots. She's already thrown back 3 shots because she has no idea what she's going to do. She signed an NDA at the law firm, and she's never ever crossed that boundary as it relates to discussing anything work related with anybody outside of work. But she's caught in a conundrum because, if nothing else, she has questions for her best friend. She knew that her best friend was sleeping with a married man, but she had no clue that A, her best friend had a sister other than the one that passed, or that she was sleeping with her sister's husband. Wesley, the covert investigator who works for LJ, returned back to the States the day before Marcus and Jessica. He completed his debrief with the staff, wrote up his report, traded out all his recording equipment, all his undercover attire, added some more addresses to his GPS, and put a plan in place to continue following Jessica. LJ's basically restructured his team. He now has an individual who's on Marcus to make sure that Marcus doesn't figure out where Angela is. And he has Wesley on Jessica full time to watch her every move because at this point they all believe that she's out to harm Angela. So Wesley follows Jessica when she leaves her office, and he realizes that he's not her only tale. He calls LJ and lets him know, and LJ looks at his location and tells him he'll be on the way. LJ hightails it through traffic, and he manages to get there right when they all pull up at the bar. He drives past the other car that was tailing Jessica, pulls over and parks, and lets Wesley know that he's in position. Wesley goes ahead and he parks, waits for Jessica to go into the bar, and he follows behind her. The person who followed Jessica to the bar sits in the car for a few minutes, gets out, goes over to the bar's windows, peeps in the windows, sees Jessica in the bar, sees Jessica sit down with Brielle, turns around, walks back to his car. OJ gets really good pictures of the man, and then he waits to see what he does next. The man drives off, and LJ follows him. LJ ends up following this man all the way to his house, 45 minutes away in a nice little suburb. LJ writes down the man's tag, he writes down the address, and he heads home. When he gets home, he does a little research, finds out who the man was, and calls Q. What up, L? What up, Q? Everything is everything. What's going on there? LJ says everything is good. What's going on with Shotty? Q says, Angie? Yeah, she's doing well. Oh, she's Angie now? I'm sorry, Mrs. Washington. LJ says, listen, man, be careful with her. Hands off. I'm serious. Q says, man, I got you. LJ say, listen, I need you to find out everything you can about Bruce Middleton. He followed Jessica to a bar tonight, and I need to know why. Q said, who is he? He's Marcus's boss and Jessica's counterpart. They're both chiefs at Marcus's firm. Q says, the plot thickens. LJ says, how long can you stay in Denver, man? Q says, however long you need me to. You know, I got some loose ends I need to tie up back in NC, but I'm here. LJ says, yeah, I bet. Listen, I need you there for the foreseeable future, man. Until we have this whole thing wrapped up, I'm not going to feel like Shotty is safe. And if I don't feel like Shotty is safe, ain't nobody safe. And at that moment, the phone beeped, and Q said, Wesley's calling. LJ says, word? Merge the call. Q says, all right. Q merges the call, and Wesley says, good. I got both of y'all on the line. I can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. One of y'all, I need you to run this plate for me. Q says, what's up? I got my computer up. He gives Q the plate number. Q runs it and comes back and says, yeah. It comes to a Brielle St. James. LJ says, Brielle St. James? That's the receptionist at my sister's law firm. Wesley says, that's who Jessica was meeting at the bar. LJ says, say word. So what did you hear, man? Wesley says, man, a whole lot of chick talk. All Jessica did was recap the trip to Aruba. She told her homegirl about the excursions and the sex and how Marcus couldn't get it up after he couldn't find Angela. Wait, she called Angela by name? Q asked. Wesley said, no, no, she just kept saying the wife, the wife. And she just got angrier and angrier, and she started slamming her hand on the dang on bar. So did Brielle seem like she knew anything about the wife? Wesley said, I really couldn't tell, man. LJ said, all right, well, stay on Jessica and keep us all posted. All right, y'all, I gotta go. They all hung up the phone and LJ called Lauren. And after he gave her the update on the latest developments, she said, well, I certainly hope that this girl is not going and telling her friend anything because I will absolutely report her to the bar. She will lose her paralegal license on top of losing her job. I really pray that she's not taking that kind of risk. I mean, the girl has kids that she needs to feed and it is not worth it. LJ says, well, based on what Wesley said, she really didn't say a whole lot. All she did was ask questions and listen, and Jessica did all the talking. Lauren says, yeah, well, I'm going to have a conversation with her either way. LJ says, wait, before you do that, I got an idea for you. Lauren says, absolutely not. You are not putting any type of recording devices in my office. I have client confidentiality to consider. LJ says, all right, okay. Lauren says, let me have a conversation with her, and I'll let you know how it goes. LJ says, all right, sis, love you. Lauren says, love you too. LJ leaves his home office and goes into his bedroom. He starts to disrobe, and Regina says, hey, babe, you all right? LJ says, yeah. It's just been one of those days, babe. How you doing? Regina says, I'm good, babe. You sure it's a good idea for Q to be with Angela in Denver? You know what happened the last time he got too close to a client?